Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shereen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you tonight. Apple CEO Tim Cook opens the doors to India's first retail store in Mumbai's Bandra Kurla complex as hundreds wait to get their first experience. A second store scheduled to be inaugurated in the capital a day after as the company kicks off an expansion plan in the country. Markets end with minor cuts for the second day in a row as volatility persists, but the mid-caps outperform the blue chips, ending closer to 1% higher. IT stocks rise the most. Big global earnings. Goldman Sachs misses revenue expectations after a $470 million hit tied to the sale of its consumer loans. Johnson & Johnson beats the street, lifts its full-year forecast, cites strong growth across all business units led by its pharmaceutical arm. The Supreme Court hears pleas seeking the legal sanctity to same-sex marriages. The centre argues the legislative intent has always been to only recognise marriage between a man and a woman. The court pushes for equality, observes that society is evolving. World Trade Organization rules against India in an ongoing dispute with the EU, Japan and Taiwan, says India violated tariff rules on the import of IT products. Government sources say that the ruling will have no immediate impact on imports from other nations and that India will challenge the ruling. 4 years after being grounded, Jet Airways' return to the skies remains uncertain. The Jalan Kalrock Consortium has less than a month to pay creditors and take over the ownership of the airline. Jet's air operator certificate is all set to expire on the 19th of May. Low-cost carrier Go First market share falls to a 20-month low in March at 6.9%. The airline denies reports of the Vadia Group planning to exit. Sources say promoters are set to infuse 300 crores into the airline and raise additional 300 crores from banks by the end of the month. Milk prices rise 15% in 15 months. Industry players cite high demand for high-fat products. Higher input costs add that prices will stabilize post-Diwali. Cadbury initiates legal action against a social media influencer for posting a video that called out Bournvita for high sugar content. The company says the video distorted facts. Adds ingredients used have been approved by regulators. Maharashtra opposition leader Ajit Pawar denies plans to move to the BJP, says he is and will stay with the NCP, accuses the media of spreading rumours without reason. Pawar says his meeting with party MLAs which sparked rumours of a defection were routine. The Kremlin reports about Putin's visit to Russian-occupied areas of Kherson and Luhansk in Ukraine, his second such trip in less than 2 months. Kremlin claims Putin attended a military command meeting in the Kherson region. Four and a half years after it opened a store in a new country, Apple opens its first retail store here in India, underlining the tech giant's increased focus towards the country. This week also marks 25 years of Apple's presence in India. Apple CEO Tim Cook threw open the gates of the 28,000-square-foot retail store in Mumbai's Bandra Kurla complex to a throng of expectant Apple fans. A second retail store will be inaugurated in the capital later this week. So why is Apple looking at India? It plans to curb its heavy dependence on China, with geopolitical tensions adding to the uncertainty. A need was felt by the company to make supply chains more resilient. India posted electronic exports of $10 billion in FY23. Of this export figure, Apple's exports alone accounted for $5 billion. This was 3 times the FY22 export figure. Inspired by its recent success, Apple now plans to triple production in the next 2 years. In fact, a recent report by JP Morgan indicates that Apple wants to shift manufacturing of 25% of its Apple products to India by 2025. Our colleagues Mangala Malu and Shivani Garg get us the key highlights from the mega Apple launch.
Well, it's a cultural moment for India, an Apple store opening out here. Every country remembers the first McDonald's store, the first Starbucks outlet, or the first Domino's Pizza outlet. An Apple store is another important global institution, the opening of which generates a lot of excitement. And excitement it was. We had thousands of people queuing up, some as early as last evening, who camped all night to be among the first few people to enter the Mumbai Apple BKC store. And they were welcomed by none other than Tim Cook himself. Tim Cook, in the previous conference call of Apple, has said that India is slowly becoming an important market for them. While in their overall scheme of things, India accounts for a little under 2% of revenues. But remember, reports suggest that last year the revenues from India for Apple grew by 50%. So, the growth runway that India offers is massive. And this in addition to the fact that a lot of the phones are now being produced and manufactured in India itself.
Store in itself is much different. So typically, globally, when you see or visit Apple stores, you get that standard white color. There is, of course, a hint of color. There is Hello Mumbai on the glass facade outside. Very, very Indian touch to the whole store. It's spacious. It's approximately 22,000 square feet store. And then you will get to experience a lot of things, a lot of products placed on the tables.
Well, here's the big news maker of the day. Apple CEO Tim Cook spoke with Network 18's Debashish Sarkar on how the Apple Watch has emerged as a key tracker for health parameters for sports personalities.
Welcome to Mumbai. How are you feeling?
It's wonderful to be here. It's so great to be in India. We've looked forward to this week for a long time.
It feels so lovely to meet you in person, and today I want to talk about the Apple Watch.
Yes.
How has Apple been able to create such a health and fitness device that can reach so many people in a meaningful way, be it professional athletes or somebody like me who just wants to stay fit?
It started with focusing on wellness and creating the three rings, the move, stand, and your exercise burn. And it went from there to heart rate and detecting AFib. And of course, notifications came early on as well. And so it has just expanded to cover the waterfront of people's needs.
Right.
And it's so great for me to come here and hear how it's used in actual training. But I get notes every day from people who found out they had AFib.
Right. And
they've told me that their doctors told them they would have died if they had not found out about it and reached out to a doctor for help. And so we just keep pulling the string to see where it takes us. One of the athletes here today told me that they use the sleep function a lot.
Right.
And all of them use the heart rate function to see which heart rate zone they're operating in.
Right.
And so there's just an enormous amount of functionality in this little thing that you put on your wrist now.
Right.
It's fantastic.
Well, that is Tim Cook, and you can catch our coverage of Apple's launch here in Mumbai on Apple Unboxed, 9:30 p.m. on CNBC-TV18. On to the day's trading action. A volatile session saw the Nifty and the Sensex end 0.25% in the red. However, the mid-caps did outperform the blue chips, and the mid-cap index was up by about 1%. Media and IT stocks fared better today. In global economic news, China's GDP rose at a 4.5% pace in Q1, beating estimates of a 4% growth rate. This is also the highest quarterly growth that we've seen in China in the past year. In global earnings, Goldman Sachs slumping in pre-market trade after it reported lower than expected revenue in Q1. Revenue coming in at $12.2 billion versus the estimate of $12.7 billion. Goldman also said it took a $470 million hit tied to the sale of a consumer loans business in its Marcus unit. Johnson & Johnson's first quarter sales up 5.6% at $24.7 billion, beating estimates. The company attributes the growth to strong performance across all of its three business segments. Back home, milk and milk products continue to get costlier, with prices rising 15% in 15 months as dairy companies across the country have hiked prices. Industry players cite high demand for high-fat products, the rise in production costs, and adverse weather as the key reasons. Manisha standing by with the details. Manisha, so should we expect prices to rise further?
That's exactly what the industry seems to be expecting. And I did speak to Mr. R.S. Sodhi of the National Dairy Association and Mr. Jain Mehta of Amul. And they both seem to expect that these are reasonable prices right now. And you need these prices to ensure that going forward, the farmers will continue to be interested in ensuring that there is more milk production coming in. When you look at the month of March and April, the expectation is that there has been better procurement than we saw last year. Mr. Sodhi continues, did tell us that consumers are paying reasonable prices for dairy right now. We did not see retail prices increase for 3 years. And then, of course, in last 18 months, we've seen prices increase by 18 to 19%. He also told us that India has not seen a fall in the milk or product prices ever. So even if you are looking at higher flush season going forward after the Diwali and the Dussehra, even if there is better production of milk, you will not see the milk prices go down because the input costs on the other side have continued to increase. So the milk prices perhaps will consolidate, but they will not come down.
Manisha, many thanks for joining us. Avalon Technologies has made a muted debut on the Lal Street. The stock listed at 436 rupees a share on the NSE, at par with its IPO issue price. Meanwhile, it listed at 431 rupees a share on the BSE. Speaking to CNBC-TV18, Avalon Tech's chairman and managing director said the company will grow faster than industry levels, adding that promoters will continue to hold more than 50% stake in the company. Sterling and Wilson has secured 3 new orders for rural electrification worth over 1,000 crore rupees from state power distribution companies in Chhattisgarh and Bihar. The company said the projects are aimed at developing distribution infrastructure at electric supply circles and have a 30-month timeline. Tata Steel in talks to raise its first green loan worth up to $400 million as per Bloomberg. The lenders could include Bank of America, HSBC Holdings, JP Morgan Chase. No final decision on this fundraise has been taken so far. A CIA Anarok report highlights that there could be a dent in the housing market growth in the next 2 quarters due to multiple factors, including inflation, higher interest rates, and several large corporations laying off people. However, there are high chances that by FY25, the market will bounce back. The guidance comes despite a bull run in the housing market in the first 3 months of this calendar year. Housing sales reaching an all-time high with sales of 1.13 lakh units across top 7 cities. The Mumbai metropolitan region and Pune accounted for over 48% of these sales. The World Trade Organization has ruled that import duties imposed by India on certain electronic products are in violation of global trading norms. And this ruling comes in an ongoing dispute with the EU, Japan and Taiwan. Sources add the ruling will not have an immediate impact on IT imports from these regions, adding that the government does plan to contest the WTO ruling. Abhimanyu joins us now with the details. Abhimanyu, what should we expect in terms of the response from the government?
Government sources have indicated that in all likelihood there is going to be no immediate impact of WTO's ruling on India's tariff treatment of ICT products imported from Taiwan, Japan and the European Union. In 2018 and 19, India had imposed an import duty on electronics products from several geographies, fearing cheap and substandard imports. Initially it was for China, but then it was extended to several other nations where there was an apprehension that substandard imports from China were being routed from these countries. WTO has passed a ruling stating that India is a signatory to ITA 1995 and cannot impose an import duty on several electronics goods. India in all likelihood is going to file an appeal before the WTO, citing the fact that several products which have been listed in this ruling didn't exist in 1995, and hence government sources have indicated that India has a strong case before the WTO. It remains to be seen how early the appeal is going to be filed and what arguments will be tendered, not just from India's side but also from the side of various other countries. Government sources have indicated that several countries had offered India to go for arbitration, but the Indian government in all likelihood is going to contest the ruling on its merits purely and is going to await WTO's decision in this regard.
Abhimanyu, many thanks for joining us. On to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive full-service airline. Jet Airways has completed 4 years of grounding. The airline was admitted to the NCLT for insolvency in June of 2019, and there is still no clarity on when it will return to the skies in its new avatar. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 the Jalan Kalrock Consortium is yet to make payments to lenders, even as the deadline is just a few weeks away. Madiha joins us now with more. Madiha, what is the status?
Well, 17th of April 2019 is when Jet Airways flew its last flight from Amritsar to Mumbai. Many have been hoping to see the airline back in air again, but the resolution process has been quite a lengthy exercise. And the key issue here largely remains the same. The Jalan-Calrock consortium, who had won the bid to take over the airline, is yet to receive the airline's ownership. This because they haven't made any payments to the creditors so far. Now, banking sources tell us that the airline's ownership will only be transferred after the consortium pays 270 crore rupees to lenders. Not just that, JKC is also required to pay 225 crore rupees towards gratuity and PF as ordered by the Supreme Court. The consortium has been in talks with lenders ever since the NCLT had refused to stay NCLT's order that had directed for implementation of the resolution plan. Remember, the NCLT had set 16th of November as the effective date for the plan and had directed JKC to pay creditors the first tranche within 180 days from then, which is the 13th of May. So that's one deadline that's fast approaching. Then there's another deadline that Jet is staring at, a very crucial license needed for an airline to fly, which is the Air Operator's Certificate, is expiring on the 19th of May. Renewing the AOC is not simple. It requires an airline to demonstrate its capability to run scheduled operations with the required fleet and staff, which Jet Airways doesn't currently have. So will JKC be able to turn things around before these deadlines and get the airline back in air? That's the key question right now, because time is clearly running out. We reached out to the Jalan-Calrock consortium, but they're yet to respond to our query.
All right, Madhya, many thanks for joining us. And staying with aviation, GoFirst market share took a blow, coming down to a 20-month low in the month of March. That's not all. Sources tell us that the cash-strapped airline is expecting a fund infusion of 600 crore rupees by the end of the month. Danish is standing by with more. Danish, how much money are the promoters likely to infuse?
Vijay Group-backed airline GoFirst is getting a fresh lease of life, as GoFirst sources have informed CNBC-TV18 that the airline will be getting rupees 600 crores towards the end of April. Vijay Group will pump in rupees 300 crores in the form of promoter equity, and rupees 300 crores will be raised via banks. This is the significant development for GoFirst, as more than 50% of its fleet is grounded due to operational issues because of some issues with the Pratt & Whitney engine. There are also reports that the promoter of the cash-strapped airline are likely to exit the business. However, GoFirst sources have said that there is no plan of exiting the business. The airline is currently flying around 23 aircraft and is hoping that many grounded aircraft will soon be ready to fly. In FY22, GoFirst posted the highest ever financial loss, and due to operational challenges, the airline has also lost a significant chunk from its market share.
Danish, many thanks for joining us. We will head into a break, but up next, Cadbury initiates legal action against the social media influencer for posting a video that called out Bonvita for high sugar content. That and more when we return.
Let's you and me step out and see how blue the sky, how tall the trees. Let's you and I step out to find.
Real estate company created. What will you create? IBM. Let's create.
Let's you and me step out and see how blue the sky, how tall the trees. Let's you and I step out to find how far we go, how deep the sea.
With a 5-star global NCAP rating, Škoda Kushaq and Slavia are India's safest family cars.
The other big story tonight, a 5-judge Supreme Court bench led by the Chief Justice heard pleas on legalizing same-sex marriage. The centre has argued it is not appropriate for the court to decide on the issue. The Supreme Court has observed that there is an evolving consensus on an equal future. The hearings will continue tomorrow. Ashmit joins us now with the commentary that came in from the Chief Justice today. Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. The Solicitor General making it clear that the court had no reason or role to play in this matter, that it was for Parliament to decide on whether legislation is required to give the go-ahead for same-sex marriage, but the Supreme Court choosing to continue with the hearing.
Indeed, in fact, the CJI was very clear that he will not allow any of the parties to dictate the nature of these proceedings, and that came in response to the Solicitor General saying that even before we get into the merits of the case on whether or not there should be same-sex marriage allowed, there's a preliminary objection being raised by the centre, the objection being that there should be absolutely no meddling in this issue by the judiciary. This is the exclusive preserve of the Parliament, of the legislature, and that was the preliminary objection. That has not been allowed yet. In fact, the Chief Justice continued with these proceedings, continued to allow the petitioners to make their submissions, which in fact led to the Solicitor General remarking at one point that this will compel the centre to think whether or not they will wish to participate in these proceedings. So strong comments, those from the Solicitor General, but not managing to impress the Chief Justice. He decided to continue and to allow the petitioners to make their submissions, led by Mukul Rohatgi. He was appearing for the petitioners in this case. He went on to argue that the centre's contention that this is an urban elitist concept is in fact misplaced, and that cannot be used to deny fundamental rights that fall to the LGBTQ community. He further went on to say that for the centre to argue that they constitute a minuscule minority then is a representation of the majoritarianism attitude, and that is simply not constitutionally sustainable, that the fundamental rights provided, right to life, right to privacy, the preamble, the way it is structured, clearly mandates that the burden falls on the centre, on the government, to ensure that these rights are freely accessible and that there can be no distinction made between heterosexual couples and same-sex couples. So that's an argument that has been made. Today was just day one. We understand the 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court will continue hearing in this case.
Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. Yes, we will be tracking the proceedings in court tomorrow as well. Now, Cadbury has initiated legal action against a social media influencer for posting a video that called out Bournvita for its high sugar content. The company said the video contains distorted facts and has made false and negative inferences about the brand. Shilpa joins us now with more. Shilpa, the company initiating legal proceedings against the social media influencer. But what's the counter claim? What's the argument?
Well, there's been quite a debate raging on social media over the weekend. Now, this happened, like you said, after the social media influencer, Himmat Singh. Now, he had put up a video where he said that all the health claims made by Bournvita are misleading because of its very high sugar content, which is not healthy for children. So he suggested that, because of the high sugar content, all the claims made by Mondelez cannot be, are eventually then misleading, and he was forced to then delete the video after he received a legal notice. And this topic then it took a life of its own on social media. Nutritionists, doctors, consumers, scientists all joined in, and their contention is that is whether these health-based drinks are even required for children. And it's not just that; it's an 11,000 crore market with various brands, and all of these have relatively high added sugar levels. And that's the argument that's been going on. Now, we reached out to Mondelez, which owns Cadbury, which owns Bournvita, and what the company said that the video had gone abnormally viral, and hence it was constrained to take legal action to avoid misinformation. And Bournvita claims that its formulation is scientifically crafted and all its claims are verified and transparent, and that all ingredients have regulatory approvals. And it is also said that, the 20 grams, which is per serve, which it says for Bournvita, has just 7.5 grams of added sugar, which then is much below the required, or rather the recommended dietary allowance of sugar for children, and that it has other micronutrients also that would be beneficial. Now, we also reached out to HUL because HUL also sells it also Boost and Horlicks, which in fact are the market leaders in this industry, and HUL also said that it's committed to providing a safe and quality product, and that it uses sugar responsibly while matching the technical needs, and that both these have very less comparable added sugar levels. But the larger debate here, or the counterpoints to the claims of the companies, have been whether these malt-based drinks are really required for children, and that this added sugar levels in the long term may not have added health benefits for them. The debate is still on, but the social media influencer has taken down the video after Cadbury served a legal notice. Back to you.
Shilpa, many thanks for joining us. Maharashtra's opposition leader Ajit Pawar is denied plans of moving to the BJP. He says he is with and will stay with the NCP, adding that his meeting with party MLAs would spark rumours of a defection were routine. Vinaya Deshpande joins us now with more on the latest controversy in Maharashtra. Vinaya.
Speculations were rife today that almost 40 MLAs of the NCP were out to support Ajit Pawar and that Ajit Pawar may finally take a call on switching sides towards BJP. Now, we have seen that with the continuous onslaught of the central agencies, that was one fear that NCP sources said that Ajit Pawar had behind the possible decision of a switch, and also the fact that he was feeling sidelined within the MVA as it was Uddhav Thackeray who was being projected as the chief minister's face. All these things came to an anticlimax after Ajit Pawar himself held a press conference refuting all these allegations, saying that they were a figment of imagination and that there was no grain of truth to these speculations. NCP will continue to remain a party and everyone as a family will continue to remain and function together.
Vinaya, many thanks for joining us. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned. News continues here on CNBC TV18.